Hello, I'm Luca Serafini, postdoctoral researcher at University of Naples Federico II in Italy. I would like to talk to you about my essay From Institutions to the Platform Society, an interdisciplinary reading of recent works by Esposito to be published in Theory, Culture and Society. I have been following Roberto Esposito's philosophical path for a long time and have analyzed his reflections on topics such as subject, community, and biopolitics in previous works. In recent years, Esposito has devoted 3 books to the subject of institutions. That of institutions is a topic of particular interest to me as it allows philosophy to engage in dialogue with other disciplines, particularly sociology. In the first part of the essay, I reconstruct Esposito's recent thinking on institutions. For Esposito, the main difficulty in philosophical thought has been how to think of life and institutions as concepts that are mutually implicated rather than opposed to each other. In his last book, Vitam Instituere, Esposito rediscovers the philosophical foundations of a virtuous union between institutions and life in the thought of 3 authors in particular, Machiavelli, Spinoza, and Hegel. In broader terms, Esposito describes a transition from a vertical notion of institutions in which their view has dropped into place from on high and centered on a repressive system of prohibitions and sanctions to a horizontal notion in which institutions are the, I quote from Esposito, fundamental rules that people prescribe for themselves or others in view of specific aims. In my view, this transition corresponds to the shift from the sociological theory of old institutionalism to that of new institutionalism, which describes a shift from a normative to a cognitive approach to the topic of institutions. Here, institutions are conceived of as systems of conventions and rules individuals adhere to in a pre-reflective manner through the naturalization of a set of routines and practices that they end up taking for granted. Subsequently, however, I highlight the risks of this cognitive conception of institutions. Basically, pre-reflective attitudes or scripts may lead to the subject being alienated and, as a consequence, to creating space for a power that acts not repressively but through a surreptitious naturalization of routines and practices. Today, major private companies such as Google, Meta, Amazon, Apple, and Microsoft, the so-called big tech, are performing various functions that have traditionally been delegated to public institutions. And their power is exercised not in a normative and repressive manner, but in a cognitive manner, through their affordances and the naturalization of practices and routines, which for the most part are accepted and taken for granted by users. Thus, in the way big tech operates in the platform society, one can find certain mechanisms of the functioning of power that are also based on the shift from a vertical to a horizontal mode of functioning of institutions, as also described by Esposito. However, in my essay, I show how this new form of power represents a betrayal of that link between institutions and life that Esposito instead wants to promote. In the final part, I then try to explain under which conditions Esposito instituent thought could also find a concrete realization in the scenario of today's digital society. In doing so, I show other possible connections between Esposito's reflection on institutions and his earlier reflection on community, understood as communitas. So I hope that you enjoy the essay.